Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and very happy to be here tonight on this Wednesday night, right before the end of the world. No, just kidding. People are just going crazy out there, so I don't know. I just think they have to lighten up and like relax. Anyway, just my take on things. I don't think it's all that bad. We are spirits after all, so we live on, and it's all good. Let's see. What I have to say here is that we have two guests tonight. One is Michael Murphy. He's the filmmaker who has made Why in the World Are They Spraying? That's his new movie, and it's about to premiere at the Chemtrail conference in Hollywood, where I'm going to be speaking on, August 17th. Yes, I'm going to be speaking on the day in which all this kind of craziness is supposed to be happening around the world, and, incoming planetary objects notwithstanding, et cetera, I will be speaking at 3:15 in the afternoon at this conference, the Chemtrail conference. You can go on to my website, projectcamelot.org or projectcamelot.tv or projectcamelotportal.com, and click on events and appearances, and you shall find the Chemtrail conference and details to click over there and register and all that good stuff. Let's see. I do hope on a Friday afternoon there will be some people in LA that make it to this conference. So please do, come by and say hello, and hopefully we can do all that. So Michael Murphy, are you on the line with me yet?
I am on the line, Carrie. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm just going to give you a short introduction here, and let's see how this goes. I'm actually going to read it from your website. So Michael Murphy is a filmmaker, political activist, and the president of the Coalition Against Geoengineering. His work focuses on the issues that go beyond the interest of the corporate mainstream media and includes originating and co-producing the groundbreaking documentary What in the World Are They Spraying? And several other short films that address chemtrails, geoengineering, and other controversial political issues. Man after my own heart, I have to say. Michael has also appeared on hundreds of radio and television interviews around the world. Many of his interviews and videos can be seen at his website, truthmediaproductions.us. And his newest film is Why in the World Are They Spraying? So it's like a follow-up to What in the World Are They Spraying, which is right up the Camelot alley, so to speak. So here he is. Michael, do you want to sort of augment the introduction I've just given you?
Well, sure. We just completed Why in the World Are They Spraying? It's going to be premiering at the Consciousness Beyond Chemtrails meeting. Looking forward to meeting you there. And we're expecting a greater impact on the movement. The first film, What in the World Are They Spraying?, was estimated a few months ago to have been seen by over 10 million people. It was an effective activism tool and really helped to wake the world up to these crimes that are occurring, chemtrail, geoengineering crimes. The feedback that we've gotten so far from Why in the World Are They Spraying, from those who have seen a screener copy, is that they believe this film will have a much greater impact. What we cover is there are many agendas associated with these programs, but it appears that weather control is the main purpose for them. So it's amazing because we started a little less than a year ago, before we had these severe droughts, and everything that we predicted and spoke about in the film is exactly what's happening right now. So hopefully we'll be able to get into that and explain why these droughts are happening, who benefits from these droughts, and what we can expect in the future in terms of how these programs will be affecting us. So it's exciting. This film will be a tool. Every film that I make is geared towards that, and really with the goal in mind, getting these programs stopped and restoring our planet, because there's been a lot of damage, unfortunately, that's been done already. But we're moving closer every day to getting them stopped.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for all your good work. And I look forward to seeing the film. I know it's going to premiere on at the Chemtrail conference. I don't know if I'm going to get to see it. I'm not sure when is it premiering? Which day?
It's on the 18th.
Okay, so that's Saturday. So I may or may not be there on Saturday. Like I said, I'm speaking on Friday, but I definitely will try to catch a copy regardless of how I see it and when. Well, at this moment, I have seen, I guess it was your preview that was on your front page of the website.
Trailer. Yes,
it's called
the trailer.
Why in the World Are They Spraying.com is the URL.
That's correct.
And I could see from that you've got Scott Stevens, for one thing, who I've had on my show several times and is an excellent, guest and weatherman and person who is very hip to what is going on with the manipulation of weather. And we've had a lot of good discussions on that order, and certainly weather modification and changing, dealing with the crops, what we are able to eat, and affecting all that. In other words, the weather is not the end game. The weather is the tool by which they plan to, do what they're already doing, which is pretty much govern or control the planet. Govern would be a nice way of putting it. But there is more to that story. And before we go down sort of my road with all of that, what I'd like you to do is sort of talk about how you realized, because, there are a lot of people who out there make films, a lot of people who complain about the chemtrails, are very aware of what they contain, etc., but few people actually go down the road of why and are able to address that. So what was your sort of line of reasoning, and how did you kind of follow that out and then end up making the film?
Well, the first film was definitely a calling, and that was actually my first film, and it had a lot of success in terms of people viewing it and getting motivated. But afterwards, the question, we covered what they're spraying and the environmental and human health implications of the programs, which are really unquantifiable. These programs are very damaging. But the question remained, why? Why is this happening? And we began looking at studies and then looking at some of the aerosol operations. And after we released the film, obviously geoengineers are selling these programs to the public, stating that there are going to be a lot of consequences. Some of those being food disruption. They're stating 2 billion people could have their food disrupted. Ozone depletion. Aerosols do deplete our ozone. We now have a huge hole in the ozone above the northern hemisphere where it appears that they've been spraying for well over 30 years. Rainfall disruptions, droughts in certain areas, heavy downpours in other areas, and we can explain that. But all of these consequences. So again, geoengineers state that they want to spray aluminum oxide as the primary ingredient in these programs. Of course, we're finding aluminum, barium, and strontium everywhere in the rain since we released the first film. Hundreds of people from around the world have been collecting rain, and they're all finding the same thing, the chemtrail geoengineering footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium. But we came upon a study from that, and then several independent studies from universities, which now indicate that putting aerosols into our sky will regionally cool parts of the planet. However, at night when the sun goes down, those aerosols act as a blanket and they trap heat. And we've seen a great increase in nighttime highs in the past 10 to 15 years when these programs have really been ramped up. So the question remained, why are they doing this? And there are many agendas associated with these programs, but we started noticing weather patterns and how these programs affect weather. And usually about 500 to maybe 700 miles ahead of a storm, we'd see the planes going back and forth, developing a canopy, ahead of that storm. So I contacted Scott Stevens, and I said, Scott, what's going on with the connection between chemtrails and our weather? And he explained to me that aerosols were required to be in the sky to modify weather. And this is something that, people knew back in the 1800s. They really perfected about the time of Vietnam when they used weather control, weather modification in the Vietnam War in a project called Project Popeye. But anyways, if we look at the primary ingredients, aluminum oxide, geoengineers say that that would be the preferred toxin to spray in our sky because it's very reflective. What we found out, aluminum is also a very effective conductor in our sky, and after putting these aerosols into the atmosphere, they can heat it up through the HARP system or other technologies. And what does the heating atmosphere do? It expands and it rises. And in that rising, it literally creates a low-pressure vacuum. And it enables these corporations to steer storms into certain areas or even, steer storms such as this summer out of certain regions. So it's very basic science. But after I learned that, I also went to an aerosol research conference in Orlando, Florida, and I listened to scientists talk about aerosols, how they interact with moisture and other things in our atmosphere. And aerosols act as what's called cloud condensation nuclei. So what they're doing, like this summer, if you look at satellite, you can see very heavy aerosol operations from Hawaii all the way up to Alaska. Our Pacific is just covered. And those aerosols, instead of allowing moisture to convect, combine, and then fall as rain, the moisture actually holds on to that fine metal particulate, and it drifts. That is the reason, and geoengineers are very open that their programs create drought. So what we're seeing here in California, typically drought, because they spray us real heavy, and the rain that should be falling here does not. It migrates. But when it gets over the continental divide, that rain has to fall somewhere. That's usually in the Midwest or the East Coast, and that's why they're getting these huge, heavy downpours. So weather control, weather modification, it's really a basic science. So now they have the ability, through heating up the atmosphere, to divert jet streams, which affects weather thousands of miles away. We interviewed Dr. Nick Begich. It was one of our great interviews. Again, you can find more info at whyintheworldhowtheyspraying.com, as well as our trailer. But they have the ability to build clouds through these aerosols, and then also break up storms. I was just back in the Midwest, and obviously we're having a drought. And when rain was in the forecast, I went outside and watched the clouds, and these beautiful thunderheads would start to develop, and then I would see planes above them releasing the aerosols, and the clouds would fall apart. They turn into this flat-looking, smoky-type-looking cloud, and it would maybe drizzle at best, but that moisture, again, would drift into a different area. So it's, again, pretty basic science in terms of how they can modify and manipulate our weather. And in the investigation, we looked really deep into why and who benefits. Because when I heard about weather control, I said, why would anybody want to do that? It just, initially it didn't make sense to me.
Okay, well, it makes a lot of sense to me, but I've been dealing with weather wars and the implications of that, and we literally call this weather wars, by the way, and I would also classify things like Fukushima as going along with that. In other words, causing earthquakes, causing even volcanic instability, destabilizing the plates, the tectonic plates. This is all part of that. It all can go under weather wars. And we have evidence that there is, for example, in Fukushima, that there was or is a sort of a nuclear blackmail going on to destabilize power plants and so on. And weather wars is just part and parcel of all of that. It's been going on by the secret government for quite some time, based on the technology initially of Wilhelm Reich, which I assume you kind of go down that road, right?
Well, we did with Scott, and then also with Nick Begich. We spoke about some of the technologies. The focus was really linking the trails into this technology, and then what these corporations are doing in terms of creating droughts in certain areas and why they're doing it. So we initially went into the science behind it, talking about how how storms are developed, creating an input in one area and having weather changes several thousand miles away. But it was geared towards somebody who's newly introduced into this, and then people in the activist community, and it was geared towards making a tool so that we can bring this into the community and really grow the movement. Militaries, as you know, Carrie, have been really interested in this technology for a long time. We spoke about Project Popeye, but it gives a battlefield advantage. So if you can control the weather and essentially disable the enemy before you go in and attack them, it's a very effective tool. And I remember back in the Iraq War, before the U.S. went in and invaded, I remember these huge sandstorms, and somebody had told me, they said, God must really be on the side of the U.S. because they're making sandstorms and making it impossible for the Iraqis. And I listened to that. At that time, I wasn't aware of, I guess I was in my sleeping stage, and I said, yeah, God must, be with the U.S. They must be doing something really good. Now we realize that this has been technology that's been around for a very long time, that governments have and still are using. There is a treaty that we covered, and you might know about this. It was the NMOD Treaty, and it bans governments from using this technology in warfare applications. But Nick Baggage told us there's a loophole in it, and that loophole is this. Countries can use that technology over their own soil. So Nick explained how weather, and Scott Stevens, former weatherman, he is just incredible in terms of his knowledge, and he was telling us how you could really start working with the storm, let's say in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, we're going to go to a break right now. We'll be right back with Michael Murphy.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Gary Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and we are talking to Michael Murphy. Michael, you were sort of completing a thought right as we were going to commercial, so if you'd like to finish sort of your sentences and complete that thought, go right ahead.
Sure, and I was talking about how effective, and Scott Stevens, again, former 20-year weatherman, explained how weather can be manipulated several thousand miles away. So this NMOD treaty, which again prohibits countries from using this technology against each other, the loophole is that they can use it right over their own land. So it shouldn't even be allowed, and this is obviously going on. But, Carrie, since we released the first film, hundreds of rain tests have come in. They're from around the world. Everybody is finding the same thing, massive amounts of aluminum, barium, and strontium. This is what many people are calling the chemtrail geoengineering footprints, obviously very toxic to us. But these metals, they match a number of geoengineering patents which have been designed to specifically spray these metals into our sky from airplanes. What we see in the sky on a regular basis now, these trails that do not diminish, they actually, behind airplanes, spread out and block our sun. This is an express goal of geoengineers, and we now have an issue that's called global dimming. NOAA has reported that we have 20% less sunshine hitting the Earth than we did just a couple of decades ago. And again, what we're finding in these tests match what geoengineers deny they're doing, but say they urgently want to do. And because of the mass awakening that's going on, we believe geoengineers are now calling for emergency geoengineering to start in 2013. So what they're doing is using this fear, stating that we have such a problem with global warming that we have to get these aerosols in the sky, or we're all going to die. But as we'll describe, this has nothing to do with protecting us, protecting people on the planet. This has to do with the consolidation with an enormous amount of both money and political power into the hands of a few. Putting aerosols into our sky can do that. If you control the weather, you literally control the planet, every political system, and every food supply. But the monetary, at the very low levels, there are certain individuals and corporations who do benefit and greatly benefit from weather control, and we're surprised to learn that weather is actually being traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Were you aware of that? I just found this out.
No, I don't think so. And I can see where that would make sense. I don't know if you had some more things to say about that, because I have a couple questions that kind of take us in a little bit different direction. But do you want to sort of address that since you brought it up?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we went out to Chicago and interviewed a trader, Mike Agnew, to learn a little bit more about these derivatives. And what we found, these derivatives are a way for certain corporations, even traders, to offset the risk based on weather disasters. So let's say if you have $5 million worth of crop in the Midwest, but you want to insure that crop for $10 million just in case there would be a drought. You can actually make money by having that crop fail. So people will use this to, again, offset the risk of certain crop failures. So if you have a scenario like we described, it's actually more profitable for certain individuals to lose their crops due to this failure than to actually grow them and harvest them. Not saying that everybody who's involved with these weather derivatives is in the inside, but without question, the weather control is happening. This is an engineered drought that we have, and certain individuals are making billions and billions of dollars this summer because certain individuals, certain corporations are in the know. And most people think that weather is unpredictable, essentially in the long term, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. Today, this is not speculation. We are having an engineered drought. And what's happening at a couple of different levels, we know through these derivatives, people are making money on the failures of crops, but also every commodity is driven by weather. So if you have the insight in terms of what the weather will do, you can literally, again, make billions of dollars annually just on that market. So food prices are rising. Corn is expected to go up 50%. And what it is, it's stripping power away from your average human beings and putting it into the hands of these select individuals. It's a fleecing of America through the control of weather. But what really shocked me, and I can get into how this relates to Monsanto and what's happening around the world. Did you want to ask your questions before I went into that?
Yes. I mean, it kind of goes in that direction. Maybe you can sort of respond around the whole subject. But what I'm wondering is, there are certain things that go into the soil as a result of having been in the air, and certainly they get into our bloodstreams as well. Some of that we know already weakens the immune system, and I know that Clifford Carnicom is going to be talking at the Chemtrail conference on, again, the weekend of the 17th, 18th, and 19th. I think he's speaking on the Sunday, if I recall correctly, and he's a real scientific expert, having analyzed all the various things that have gone into the chemtrails over time and also over different areas, as I think they do tailor make some of the concoctions for particular areas. But all of this has to do with also affecting the food, as you said, the metal content in foods, the way the plants grow or are unable to grow in the soil, and things of that nature.
That's correct, and I want to acknowledge Clifford Carnicom, and I'm really excited to meet him. I respect his work and think he's just done so much for the movement. And there are a number of different things that are being sprayed into our sky. The work that we do is really specialized on the geoengineering and how that relates to weather control. But Clifford takes it, into a very deep level, and it's a very important issue to address because it's about the genetic modification of every living thing on the planet. So getting back to, in terms of human health and ecology, we spoke about the chemtrail geoengineering footprint, aluminum, barium, and strontium, the primary metals. There's much more than that being sprayed, but the primary metals are showing up, as we said, in rain tests, but people now are starting to get blood tests. And there was a group in Mojave County, Arizona, about 25 of them got their blood tested, and I think it was 20 who had levels of barium that were just off the charts. They had, I think 20 of them had levels that were considered to be 1,000 times the elevated level of barium in their blood very toxic. Barium lowers our immune system, creates high blood pressure. Aluminum levels were off the chart. We are seeing aluminum-related illnesses such as Alzheimer's, dementia, going off the charts. Now we have dementia that is being reported in people in their 40s. Huge problem. ADD, asthma, going through the roof. And respiratory mortality went from number 8 down to number 3 in just a 6-year period. So we are seeing the consequences. And again, these metals are showing up everywhere. But what this does to soils is just as concerning, and the effects are unquantifiable. And in the first film, we covered some of the effects, and we interviewed Francis Mangels. He was a 20-year biologist, and started noticing that things in the area, forests were dying, a lot of organic foods were not growing, so we started testing the pH of the soil, and what he found was the soil pH was changing from their typical acidic soil in that area to alkaline. So they did further tests, and they noticed that, again, massive amounts of aluminum, barium, and strontium, those will change the soil of the pH, and plant life that requires an acidic soil to grow will start to die. But in our investigation, we interviewed a lot of farmers, and the ecosystem collapse is happening around the world. Forests are dying. That is not speculation. Organic foods are not growing the way that they used to, and we interviewed a couple of farmers, and Why in the World Are They Spraying? So you can go to whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com for more information about the film. The farmers that we interviewed have seen between a 60 and 70% decline in their yields, and there are a couple of reasons for this. Geoengineering, it creates stress on the soil, so it creates heavy metal contamination, and most plant life, a lot of them have root systems that will actually shut down when bioavailable aluminum is introduced. Aluminum is very common in our soil, but not in its free form. So what they're spraying is free-form aluminum. As a result, the plant or the tree will die a very slow death. It won't get the nutrients that it's supposed to and eventually die. So that's why one of the main reasons why we're seeing the ecosystem collapse. But we're also seeing droughts in certain areas, which obviously kills ecosystems, floods in other areas. And another thing is fungal growth. Fungus can be very deadly to ecosystems. Geoengineering programs blocking our sun, they are known to proliferate fungal growth. So what is happening? Farms across the country they're going under. And what we found, this is in part a couple of different things. If you remember the floods that we had in the Midwest a little bit over a year ago, it was right after the planting season, and these floods came in, flooded out a lot of the farmland. So the farmers had a couple of choices. They could either go under and sell their land, and of course there was a company owned by George Soros who purchased a lot of that farmland for pennies on the dollar. So that's related to Agenda 21. This is a land grab through weather control. It's a very effective tool for doing that. But the farmers that that didn't sell their land, they had the choice to go to new genetically modified seeds that could be planted late in the season. So DuPont, Monsanto raked it in with that. But the drought that we're seeing this summer, without question, this is an engineered drought. And as we stated, there are a couple of financial reasons for this, but GMO seeds, they're definitely making a killing with this because through this, what is called abiotic stress. Abiotic stress is everything that chemtrail geoengineering programs do. Again, drought, too much rain, fungal growth, and then heavy metal contamination. Monsanto has a patent that addresses abiotic stress, and it's in everything from apples to zucchini. So what is happening through the death and destruction of our natural systems? These corporations come in, they put themselves up as a solution, and end up corporatizing everything. And, Carrie, it just broke my heart because I live part-time in Maui, Hawaii, on an organic farm, and we're dependent on the land. Occasionally we'll go to the store, but essentially we grow our own food. And I think that was the way that our Creator, that nature was developed so that we could be independent, dependent on natural seeds, natural sun, and obviously rain. Well, things are changing dramatically, and the yields just are not coming in. And what it showed me, this is literally, it's what's spoken about in every major prophecy. It's this huge system, governmental corporate conglomerate, I call it the beast, that is usurping the authority of nature, and through death and destruction, they're able to genetically modify seeds, and by doing that, they usurp this authority of God and bring it under the authority of corporations so that these entities can have this godlike power. It's very insidious.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you for all of that. That's great information for people. Let me say that I actually have on the front page of Camelot right now on my blog sort of a discussion about that goes in even further into this whole question of why chemtrails are happening just as it happens, simply because I've been in contact with a recent whistleblower who was drawing my attention to the gray human hybrids that are starting to appear around the planet as a result of the mass abduction program that the Greys undertook, the negative service to self Greys back the last, 40 to 50, maybe even more years. And so at this point, we have evidence of that cropping up in many places, and there will be more and more. And of course, this is very controversial, and I do understand that. But nonetheless, it is important to take a look at. My understanding from whistleblowers that I've been in contact with, more than one on this subject, is that what's really happening here is that they're changing the atmosphere of planet Earth to a more methane-like environment that involves making it more conducive to these gray human hybrids, as well as grays and reptilians and other possible visitors to planet Earth that don't find our atmosphere to their liking. It is part of a takeover scenario, and it's been planned for decades. Now, I know that doesn't sound very promising to people listening, but it is something that has to be seriously considered. And if you look at the overall planning that it took to put all of this into place, and the Cray computers in Colorado, et cetera, things like Tavistock and so on, these things all begin to add up and to paint a picture. And so what we've got going on here is a steady effort to make an old version of humanity. We'll be right back. Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio, and we are talking to Michael Murphy. We've only got about 15 minutes left with Michael. Just to give you a heads up, we do have a chat room, and sorry, the link was just changed on the front page. So if you want to go back to the front page and click on live chat and put your questions into the chat room, we can certainly take your questions there. We also have a call-in number on American Freedom Radio. It's on their main page. I don't have it in front of me at this exact moment, but I believe we could still take calls as well if you want to try that. But at any rate, back to the discussion here. What I was saying was really about the changing of the atmosphere of planet Earth and where this is all headed. What is interesting is that because we're going into the galactic center, because we are not into the galactic center, we're going in alignment with the galactic center, and because of all these sort of convergence of amazing things that are going on planet Earth, and with regard to incoming energy from outside the solar system that is affecting us in a mighty way at this time. There are reasons why they've been sort of raising the bar in terms of all these changes. And I don't know if you go down that road at all, Michael, but I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on the matter because you have just made this film with the question why. And when you start down that road, you have to realize why they have an end game such that they do and what their plans are. Is kind of the next step along that road.
Right. The question of why, and that road is a very, very long road, and it goes to many great depths. Right now, our audience is a large audience, and we're bringing this message into mainstream. And the reason for that is I have great hope with this issue, in the hope that we collectively, as humanity, can come together and will come together and stand up and reclaim our Earth. The planet's being decimated. It's being molested in several different ways. And we have the authority over this planet and what happens on this planet. Unfortunately, through the generations, like you spoke, there has been this usurping of authority by these entities. So I can't stress the importance of us realizing, making people aware of this, and then moving closer to getting these programs stopped. So really, my goal right now with this film, we're going to bring this into much greater depth, but right now it's what I've been called to do is address this at the level in terms of weather control, how that impacts people as individuals, and again, what we're doing is moving towards getting critical mass. Once we have critical mass, then we can go into the greater depths of that. And it's for us, it's an issue of prudency, the right time, saying the right thing at the right time. And this is a message that people can relate to, and this is a message where we can literally infiltrate this mainstream, the people who really find it difficult to believe that airplanes are even spraying. And it's a gateway. This is a gateway issue. Once people realize the reality that, yes, we are being sprayed, and there are some really ominous things that are going on, they're willing to accept a lot greater depths in terms of truth. That's why I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, the work that Clifford Carnicom and many of the other pioneers that really bring people into a greater depth, because it, without question, is absolutely needed. For me, I'm called to address this at that level, and I think it's important. You know, I think it's real important that we address this with the level that we're called to address. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, sharing what we've learned in terms of how this is related to weather control and why in the world are they spraying. But I have 3 days where I get to be a student, and I'm going to take a notebook, and I'm going to learn, because this issue is very broad and it's very vast. But one thing is for sure, this is about, literally, it's about genetically modifying every living thing on the planet. And again, getting back to the natural systems. We have seeds that are dependent on rain, they're dependent on sunshine, essentially dependent on nature. And through these aerosol programs, even with the things that we're breathing, these entities are literally genetically modifying everything on the planet so it comes under their authority. And you were talking about this going on for thousands of years. Yes, this has been in the process for thousands of years, and we are very close to the end of this process. And that's why it's so important for those of us who are aware of this to take a stand to address this, because we are the ones that, wow, for thousands of years, prophecies have been talking about this time. And this essentially it's the final battle between good and evil. And I have great hope. You know, some people address this issue in fear. Other people address it in anger. I address this in faith. I believe that collectively, all of us standing up, not even all of us, it's just a small percentage. And when we stand up, the power of the spoken word, the power of the authority that we have, because we are stewards of this earth, that we will reclaim and we will restore, will be part of the restoration of our planet. And that is my hope, because, you know, the future doesn't look bright if we turn our heads or if we focus on dancing with the stars. But there is this awakening that is happening. And, you know, the message that we bring is an open door. It's your gateway into what's going on at the bigger levels. And I think it's a very important message to bring to the masses. So I'm very, very humbled to be a part of it, very excited to see where this is going. And I think we're going to have an incredible 2012, and I think we're going to see these incredible changes. But that happens with a conscious, awakened community and society. And, Carrie, it's happening. You know, we have seen millions of people woken up to this issue. Just a couple of years ago, you know, it was very uncommon to see anybody who knew what was going on. My first film was actually after I had moved to Hollywood, and I was having the challenge finding a job. So I got somebody with a camera, went out to Hollywood Boulevard, and asked people if they knew what chemtrails were. Nobody knew. No one knew. And when we filmed, when we filmed the first film, What in the World Are They Spraying, on Maui, 6 people on that island knew. I went back this winter. Unfortunately, everything's dying because of the contamination. But I was there for 2.5 months. Guess what? I met 7 people who were unaware of that issue on that island. Now they are aware of that. And we did an aggressive campaign on Maui because Maui has a small population. So all of my DVDs, we encourage people who purchase a DVD to make copies and hand out for free. So that encourages activism. My next film, Why in the World Are They Spraying, can be found at whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com. But we did screenings of the film, and then we hit the street, and we got critical mass on the island, and we met with the mayor's office, and they were very reluctant at first, but we met with them, we gave them a copy of the film, spoke to them about getting an ordinance started to ban these programs above Maui, and we have now the Clean Sky Ordinance. It's made it through, I think, 3 of the 4 stages before it gets passed, to ban geoengineering without an environmental impact statement and also informed consent. And I know people are saying that's never going to get them to stop, and I agree. It's the people behind these programs are not saying, oh, no, we can't spray them around Maui. But the goal of that is twofold. It's to use that to awaken the world, stating that we have an ordinance, and that will help awaken many people around the world. And then the second part of this, because geoengineers now are calling for emergency geoengineering, and they're trying to get these illegal programs legal at this point. If we get ordinances around the world established, it will really give them a challenge to go ahead and bring these into the light. So I think it's a good strategy. Not the only one, though. There are many different things that we can do.
Sure, absolutely. Well, there is one really crucial question that I don't think has been addressed, and I see it here in my chat room. And I also had a long discussion with a whistleblower type person not very long ago at all. And they raised this question, and it is a fascinating question and one that really does need to be addressed. And I don't know if your film addresses it at all, which is basically where and how are they distributing this stuff? In other words, you have to wrap your mind around the idea that they have to be putting this on planes, not just, not only small planes, but they're putting it on, from what I understand, jets and also conventional airplanes that are passenger. Now, I don't know if they have any passengers in them at the time when they're spraying, but I know that some even what are called, passenger conventional aircraft are considered to have been seen with a spray of chemtrails coming out of them. So,
right.
So the question is how are they doing this? What are the logistics of mixing the chemicals and getting them loaded on planes? Who is loading this stuff on there, and who is actually, what is the sales program under which this is being, in other words, we have people that are working in the aviation industry who are part and parcel of this whole sort of massive scale, worldwide effort to basically change the composition of our atmosphere. And so you can't just stay in the United States, you have to go to other countries as well. So when I come back, I'd love to have you address that question.
Yes, thank you.
Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and we are actually only with Michael Murphy for an hour, and our hour is pretty much up. But I did want to close with Michael for a few more minutes, if we could do. Michael, you're still there?
I am.
Okay. I believe you only booked in for an hour here, and so I don't want to take too much of your time. But I guess I did ask you this sort of really important question right before the break. So would you like to address that question, if you wouldn't mind, before we close out with you?
Oh, absolutely. And, for the new film, Why in the World Are They Spraying, I went back to the geoengineering conference from the American Association for the Advancement of Science meeting, listened to geoengineers, and they spoke a lot about several different methods of disbursement. One of those is, as we know, it's probably the most common method that we see on a regular daily basis. That's from airplanes. And there's a patent which is called the Welsbach patent. It's a device that was designed to specifically spray aluminum and other heavy metals out of airplanes, fine metal particulates, for the purpose of geoengineering. But had a chance to listen a little bit further, and geoengineers spoke about using boats out in the Pacific. And when I was in Hawaii, a lot of people would see the aerosols, which can be noted by the wispiness, the wispiness of these clouds. It doesn't look natural at all. So we started looking at satellite, and what we noticed, instead of seeing long trails out around the islands, we would see what appeared to be these explosions. So again, we think it was some sort of disbursement method, either by boats, as geoengineers spoke about, or maybe by flares or some type of device that would make an artificial cloud. And as crazy as that sounds, NASA does have technology to create artificial clouds. And then also rockets. Rockets have been dumping aluminum oxide, other metals that can be used for geoengineering out of those programs. So again, there are a number of different disbursement methods, but it appears that the airplanes right now are the primary reasons. Carrie, you're right. There are thousands of people who are involved with this at a number of different levels. And I think we have to look at the issue of compartmentalization. Is the guy who's taking the aluminum oxide, the fine metal particulate in a semi-truck to the airport, are they telling him you're hauling this for the sole purpose of dispersing this in the sky so it's going to kill your family? And I think the answer to that is no. And I really think even the pilots who are involved, they're probably told that they're doing something good, perhaps to save the planet from global warming. And if we told the public about this, they might be so excited that you're saving them that we just couldn't deal with all of the excitement. I say that very facetiously. But again, there are a number of people that are aware of this, and even people at the very, very high levels, who know exactly what's going on. Bill Gates, he's a large funder into geoengineering, also a large investor in Monsanto. So we know that geoengineering destroys farmers' ability to grow food. And then, of course, Bill Gates comes in with his agenda of the genetically modified seeds. One thing that we didn't cover, and I know I'm going off base a little bit, Monsanto has openly stated that they have an objective and an agenda to go in and genetically modify Africa. Surprisingly enough, geoengineers state that their programs will, if they start, which they have started, create droughts in Africa and Asia. Guess what? We have major droughts in Africa and Asia. People are starving, so now farmers are forced to go with their seeds. We covered this all in detail, and why in the world are they spraying? So the trailer can again be found on our website, or just go for the acronym, whitlots.com. But the question that most people ask, they say, aren't the people at the very high levels, aren't they breathing in the same, in the same air that we are? And the answer to that, obviously, is yes. And some people have a difficult time grasping this. What we're dealing with is an addiction to power. And every day, many of the listeners have probably had a family member or a friend who's become addicted to a drug. And in that addiction, people put their health and their family members' health at risk in order to chase the rush from that drug. How much greater of a rush is godlike power? And I think that's what we're dealing with. But to go the extra level, yes, this without question is about terraforming the planet. It's about the genetic modification of the planet. And when people live dependent on nature, when they live off of what was given to us, whenever the earth was created, corporations, these entities, do not have control, and they certainly don't have power. So again, through the death and destruction of natural systems, through what they're putting into our systems and we're breathing in, that is what enables these entities to shift power into their hands and take it away from us and our Creator. But Carrie, it is time for us to stand up. It is time for us to say no more and quit feeding the system. These entities feeding off of us. So when we purchase genetically modified seeds, when we support the very system that is out to destroy natural systems, we're in essence supporting this. So it's time again for all of us to step out of Babylon. We need to rethink the way that we do things. We need to take a stand and say no more. If we don't, the future is looking very, very grim. But again, I have a lot of faith in my fellow human beings. And as humanity, my goal in this whole scheme is to collectively encourage people to stand with us, those of us who are addressing this. And I'm so grateful for what you're doing and everybody else who is addressing this. And when we do, we will restore our planet, we will take back our power, and we will create the future that we want. And that is the type of power that we have. We just have to exercise it. It's very simple.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael Murphy, for coming on the show. Very well said, and I hope that people will come down to the Chemtrail conference, hear you, and see your new film that's just going to be released there, and also come down and hear me on Friday afternoon at 3:15, and all the other wonderful speakers. Clifford Carnicom is a special highlight, I would say, on Sunday, late afternoon. So again, you can go to the events drop down on my site if you want to find the link over there. I'm sure that there's probably a link also on Michael Murphy's Why in the World Are They Spraying website for the conference, and that is on the weekend of the 17th, 18th, and 19th, just about a week away, a little over a week away. So thank you again, Michael, and take care of yourself, and let's have you back on in the near future.
I would love to, and can I interject really quickly? One thing that I forgot to say was the entire conference is available live stream, so you can go to the website, cbclive2012.com, and purchase it for a fraction of the price. If you're outside of LA, you can see this for a very inexpensive price. Again, so go to whyintheworldAreTheySpraying.com, and thanks for letting me get that in. I totally forgot during the program.
Yes, thank you very much. That's a very good point for the people that certainly obviously can't make it in person to the conference. So take care of yourself, and thank you very much for coming on the show.
You too. Can't wait to meet you on Friday.
Okay, absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.